And Bitcoin to me represents financial security in my future. It's hope. It's actually hope for me, that I can take this and, it can grow and I can actually retire without having to work my whole life out of necessity. If if I'm working when I'm 50, 60 years old, I want it to be because I want to. I don't want it to be because I have to pay my bills with this.
What you mentioned in your video is that you got to know Bitcoin in 2020. How did your introduction to Bitcoin occur? How did you learn about it? And what does Bitcoin mean to you? And one of the things I loved in your video is that you said that I am still a Bitcoiner.
Mhm.
So I want you to elaborate on that too.
Yeah, so I started getting into Bitcoin in 2020. Of course, I had heard about it before, but it, you know, some sometimes it takes a lot of exposure to actually like understand it and actually want to. I say this like Bitcoiners have a lot in common because when you first get into Bitcoin, you kind of like it's kind of you're kind of doing a crazy thing if you think about it uh, as you're getting introduced to it. As you are introduced to it and you start to understand it, you're like, oh, not getting into Bitcoin is the crazy thing. That's the crazy thing. But when you're first getting in, you're kind of taking a big risk. Everyone's kind of like telling you not to do it. But I had a good friend of mine who also trains jujitsu. He, he was telling me early in 2020, he said, hey, man, I just want to let you know that it's at a very good price right now. He was telling me around March, February, it's at a very good price right now. This year, it's going to rip. I'm telling you, whatever you have, just put a little bit in, just put a little bit in. And it, I was kind of on the edge for about 6 months. I think finally in October or November of that year, 2020. So about 7, 8 months later, I started putting money into Bitcoin, and at this time, I believe it was at 18,000. So he was telling me about it when it was like 3,000, 2019, 2020. He was telling me about it then. He was
Exactly.
telling me, but he wasn't like pushing me. In March of 2020, he was really like, "Hey, I'm telling you right now, it's at like 3 or 4,000, something like that, somewhere around there." And he was like, "Dude, it's a great opportunity. Of course, you don't have to pour your life into it, but I would, if you have any money that you are comfortable with putting aside, I would start now." And I didn't listen to him at that time. I think I hopped in later in the year. I want to say it was either 18 or 9,000. I don't know. It was somewhere around there. I forget what it was
Was
at
it
the end.
before or was it after Sailor? That's a good time actually to
You
remember it.
you know what? He was sending me resources. He would send me like videos. Hey, watch this video on YouTube. And it was right around the same time as Sailor started coming out
So
about it.
August 2020. It
Yeah,
was
I
August
got I
2020.
got in
You know
October
the
or
date.
November of 2020. That's
Yes.
exactly like when I committed to it, and boom.
Mhm.
And then when he was sending me these resources, I was watching them, I was reading these resources, and I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll put in whatever I can. And then I got to a point when I started like was reading this stuff and I was watching this stuff, and I was like, hey, I think this is like potential to go crazy. And I had already seen it start rising. It was going up already, and I was like, hey, I'm making a little something here. This is awesome. Like, uh, finally, I was like weekly payments 2 times a week. Anytime. So I pay my bills from my general population. Those are like my regular people who come in, not the athletes. I don't rely on the athletes to pay my bills, pay my rent, whatever. Anytime one of the athletes would pay me, I would take a good percentage of that money because I get a percent of what they get paid. I would take a percentage of that money and put it straight into Bitcoin. So those would be my larger purchases. So I was DCAing, and I still do to this day. The reason that I built up, you know, I read some stats, and it's estimated that there's around 300 million, which I'm being generous with these estimates. 300 million people in the world have any Bitcoin, and like less than 5% of that is estimated to have one whole coin.
Yes.
Okay, less than 5% has one whole coin. That's crazy to think about. So, it's 15 million people that are estimated to have one whole coin. Listen, I don't make a ton of money. Okay, I just was consistently putting money into Bitcoin bi-weekly, at least weekly for the last 4 years, and I was able to get 0.88 of a coin, which, that's not like, that's pretty good, man. Like, if you think about it, like,
That's a
I was
lot of money.
I was buying it all the way up to 69K, all the way back down to 16K. I never stopped. Like, I never stopped, no matter what. I
Didn't
just
it worry you that it was crashing so hard?
uh so my friend would tell me, no, 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 this is good, because I think a lot of people can learn from this. Like, if okay, in my life, I have had money before, and I've lost it all, just being stupid. I suffered most of my adult life. I suffered with addiction problems and stuff like that. And um, so for me, I was willing to go down with the ship once I started learning about it. I was like, hey, I've lost things before. I really believe in this thing. And if it goes bad, it's okay. If it goes all the way to zero, all right, I'm going down with the ship. I don't care. I believe in this thing. I know it's going to go back up. And like I said, I'm going down with the ship. It didn't matter to me. I've lost. I've had to start over before, and I think that's also, given the situation that I'm dealing with now. I think that's something that, like, keeps me resilient. Is like, hey, I've lost it all before. It does hurt when I think about, when I sit and ponder on it. I was almost to my goal. My goal when I got in was one whole coin. I was almost there. I was pretty close. Like 0.88 of a
Mm.
coin is pretty close.
Pretty darn close, yeah.
Yeah, and especially when you see Bitcoin at its current price, it's like, those $2,500 purchases that I would make, those don't do the same. It's not the same purchasing power as I had before. But listen, it is what it is, and I think over time I can accumulate back up to a whole coin. I believe I'll get there.
Yeah.
And what
So
does being a Bitcoiner to you mean? And sorry, Roosevelt, don't forget your question.
no, it's okay. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Um, so Bitcoin to me, like I said, I come from humble beginnings. Okay, I didn't grow up with a lot. I wasn't dead poor. I wasn't homeless, nothing like that. I was homeless at different times in my life, but not when I was a kid. Um, and Bitcoin to me represents financial security in my future. That's it, it's hope. It's actually hope for me. That I can take this, and it can grow, and I can actually retire without having to work my whole life out of necessity. Um, if I'm working when I'm 50, 60 years old, I want it to be because I want to. I don't want it to be because I have to pay my bills with this. And as being self-employed, as having my own company, I don't have a 401k. I don't have a retirement fund that I'm pouring into. Bitcoin is my retirement fund. It was my retirement fund. So, I pretty much put my life, or not pretty much, I put my life savings into Bitcoin for the last 4 years. But regardless of what happened, I didn't lose any faith in Bitcoin. I know that I made a user error, and that's on me. Okay,
Yeah.
I learned a lot from what I did. I now I understand even more about, like, um, being safe and secure with my Bitcoin. And I was told, like, the guy who orange pilled me, he told me, like, hey, those seed words, that's your life. Like, you guard that with everything. But listen, when something like that, like, you never think it's gonna happen to you. Oh, no way I'll lose that paper. No way I'll forget my pen. No way that can happen to me. So you're not thinking, at least I wasn't like, oh, I'll lose it. No way. Like, I wasn't thinking about that. I was like, oh, come on, it's good. It's in my drawer or wherever it was. Um, and I'm not gonna lose that. But it was negligence. It was negligence on my part. And it's not a
Yeah.
fault of Bitcoin. And that doesn't, like, deter my belief in Bitcoin, not even one bit. If anything, I'm like, no, now it's even more important that I have to allocate more. I'm budgeting stricter now. Like, no more DoorDash, no more any of this stuff that I was doing 4 or 5 days out of the week. It's like, no, like, I don't have room for that. Everything for the next 4 years, again, all my extra money is being budgeted towards getting my stack back.